All right, welcome everybody. Today we talk about building the AI-enabled GTM engine. To do that, we brought on someone I've gotten to know a little bit over the last little while. He's really dipping deep, I think, in some of this GTM and AI stuff. Name is Scott Webb. Scott, thanks for joining. How are you?
Doing well, Gabe. Good to join you. Good to see you again.
Yeah. It's been fun kind of catching up over the last couple months and watching your journey and our journey at the same time.
Yeah.
I think you and I, when was that? You and I caught up. It's been probably at least
Probably
3 or
about
4 months, right?
probably about 6, 8.
Is it
Yeah, I
even
think it
that?
was
Okay.
early. Yeah, I know. I
I
think it
was
was the
gonna
beginning of the
say because
year.
I was about to say, I felt like you were one of the first I officially joined Dave and Signals, kind of in that May timeframe, but I was doing
Yeah,
some
it's probably
consulting,
pretty
you
close
know
to that.
yeah, so anyways, I think you were one of the first conversations I
Yeah.
had as we were just kinda kicking this off, and I was like, "No, no, no, now I'm all in," and from January to May, I'd been kinda kicking tires and talking to him, and we've been doing some
Yeah.
consulting on the side, but I think you're one of those. So anyways, it's been fun to kinda see some of the things you're doing. Obviously, we've been trying to do some stuff together, but maybe before we dive into this cool piece you wrote, AI and GTM, tell us a little bit about your background, some of the fun stuff you've been up to.
Yeah, so, I've been in, consulting and professional services for pretty much my entire career. So, you're talking over 25 years. And a lot of that has been very traditionally kind of building and go-to-market roles, kind of building businesses, building practices. And, through that, you kind of learn the best practices, you learn what works, you kind of learn through trial and error the things that, resonate and don't. It's been incredible kind of watching a number. I was able to kind of lead a company here in Chicago that grew from 0 to 35 million, exited that with over, 200 employees, was go-to-market leader for another $100 million organization that then merged 200. So I've seen a lot of different stages of organizational growth. And then, this year kind of took that to step out and kind of start my own advisory practice, specifically working with other, B2B service businesses and helping them, especially a lot that are kind of stuck in that kind of, middle stage where they've had some early growth, they're struggling to really sustain it and get to the next level, and just learn from, the things that have worked, what's changed, how do we really kind of hyperscale that growth now going forward. And that's been, the last 9 months of kind of working with businesses there, and it's been super rewarding.
Yeah, awesome. And you're going under the umbrella of, Crescent Group, is that right?
Yeah,
Crescent Group?
Crescent Group. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So we started that really as just a way of kind of passing on a lot of the things that we learned, using a lot of the kind of the playbooks, which are really just how do we kind of practically run a business, a people-based business,
Yes.
that's delivering services to other businesses in a way that's compelling and value creating for both the client and the organization.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and that's how we cross paths on this. Scott did kind of wrote a piece. I think it was called, I had it written here, the AI GTM Playbook, 7 ways to
Yeah.
multiply your revenue team's effectiveness. And he did a post. I was like, dang, that's some meaty stuff in there. So many people in this world trying to do more with less, figuring out all the noise out there. I thought it'd be awesome to kind of have Scott on and walk through some of his learnings. Obviously, awesome background. Congratulations on all the success. But he's tried to distill some of that into this kind of piece. And so I wanted to see if I could steal some of that knowledge and give it to our audience today. So with that, maybe we can dive in just a little bit. I gave kind of the title of the piece. I gave my overview. What was the genesis of it? Did I hit that about right? Or why kind of put this together for the folks out there?
Yeah, I think as with a lot of kind of new topics that come up, a lot of organizational leaders kind of struggle with figuring out how does it apply to their business, right? What part of their business is really going to be changed by this? What part's not?
Yes.
Does it solve problems or create new problems? And there's just, listen, there has been an explosion of options over the last, 3 years for
Yeah.
go-to-market leaders to figure out different ways of doing, their jobs. And sometimes that, analysis of paralysis, right? Like you absolutely get frozen by all the choice. What I wanted to do was try to streamline that a little bit, try to make it a little bit more sequential of thinking about the stages that you have to go through to prepare your organization. What are the kind of some of the right choices to make? And then how do you make sure that you're really seeing, the full value when you commit to this?
Yeah.
So it was really meant to kind of be that stage by stage playbook.
Yeah, I love it, and I think you outlined it pretty well there. So reading through it, couple things I wanted to see if I could pull or get your take on is you open this up, you kind of talk about this idea of the magic bullet tool is dead. I remember kind of being like, oh yeah, I was chatting to the team about that. I'm like, I think that's probably true. What do you feel like is the biggest misconception that leaders still have about AI solving their revenue problems just out of the box?
Yeah. I think, what makes this AI revolution so powerful is also what drives the biggest misconceptions, which is you have this word intelligence right in the name. And I think a lot of leaders think that that means that you bring in an AI tool, it's going to come in and make all the decisions for you, and that you can simply kind of plug this into your system and everything's done, right? And the reality is that, as with anything, this is a tool that drives automation. And we've seen automation in industry, we've seen automation in physical tasks for a century. But this is automation for thinking tasks.
Hmm.
And what that means is that it is a powerful, powerful tool and set of tools and capabilities that brings new thinking to bear. But that means that you need to be driving that thinking,
Oh,
right? You can't abdicate or outsource kind of that critical intelligence to the tool. You need to use it responsibly. And so most organizational leaders, I think, where they fail beginning is not realizing their responsibility in driving the
yeah,
success
that's cool.
of the program and the tool in how they start it.
Yeah, that's right. So many I think that is the debate, right? It's like abdication, like you're kinda like just letting it do its own thing. What line did you just use that? I might try to steal that. You kinda said it's, um, you were just talking about in the
That
past, we've
it's
had tools that automate.
automation for thinking tasks.
Yeah, and in the past, we've had automation, but more for doing tasks, right? Is kind
Yeah,
of the way you frame. Yeah, that's right. That is so much different. It's like we've obviously seen the typewriter and the car. I don't know, all these doing, but
right.
yeah, you might be that is because I was just debating. I did a one of my controversial LinkedIn, and I was debating with people. I was surprised how many people were. I want to say almost anti. They were a little. They're so they're just nervous. There's apprehension about this. I think everywhere,
Absolutely.
and I think one of the reasons is we are just what you said. We're so used to a stove that cooks versus fire, whatever it is. To automate tasks, but this automation of thinking is freaking us out, and you
It
cannot
does.
abdicate.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
I might tweet that out and call it my own. Anyways, so you kind of break this down into a couple different stages. Stage 1 in your model, I think you called foundational ready. It was
Mhm.
basically the least sexy work in the world, process mapping, kind of data clean. Why do so many firms kind of miss this step, and what
Yeah.
breaks downstream when they miss that? Maybe give us a little bit on stage 1, and then why do so many
Yeah.
teams miss it?
Well, I mean, isn't it always the case that when something new and exciting comes along, it is the most mundane aspect of it that actually kind of determines whether it's going to be successful,
Dang
right?
it. Dang it.
And I think that's exactly why so many organizations skip the step. I mean, I think a lot about mental models, and I think a lot of leaders have this idea that this is, bringing in an AI tool for the go to market. They think is going to be like bringing in, the robot maid from the Jetsons. She's going to clean everything. She's going to lift up the couch, dust on the couch. She's going to feed the dog. You're going to have a martini waiting for you when
Yes.
you get home from work,
Yes, that is what I
right?
want. How come I can't have that?
And in reality, it's more like a Roomba, right? Which is that if you straighten up first and you set the boundaries and map out exactly what you want it to do and remove all of the big obstacles, then it can drive and make independent decisions,
Mm,
make an independent plan, execute upon that, and take care of all of the things that can be done effectively, but without you having to execute the mental labor to do it. And that allows
mm,
you to then turn around and do more important things. And so that context, those boundaries really is critical. And that starts with cleaning your room, right? Making sure that you have removed the obstacles of ineffective data integration between your existing systems, making sure that you've removed the obstacles of human processes where it's when one person's head to another person's head, it's never written down, no one understands it.
mm.
And you need to be able to kind of extract that intelligence, to be able to execute. So if you do the mundane task of getting your house ready,
Yeah,
then you can bring in the tools and really see outstanding results.
that's cool. Yeah, that I like the Roomba example. That thing it's not that great. I mean, it's okay, but your point, you do have to put some things in order. You obviously can't have all these chairs laying around and clothes laying
Yeah,
around. It needs to be pretty much clean, and then that thing cleans a little bit more. So
and then it takes care of everything, yeah.
fun example there. So the playbook kind of dives into this idea that AI will not replace GTMs as much as it will actually multiply them. Maybe a couple examples where AI is doing that. It's changing productivity or pipeline in some of these B2B companies that you're seeing. Anything come to
Yeah,
mind?
yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I think this is critical, and I think it's also important that we're honest about this. Yes, there are gonna be labor hours that are reduced or eliminated. That's the entire rationale for investing in any kind of efficiency, right? The question is, where do those labor hours go? Are they removed entirely, or are they reinvested into higher value activity?
Hmm.
I think we know the answer to this, because if we look at the history of automation, we look at the history, what we've seen is rounds and rounds of automation that created new
Yes,
opportunities for those
yes.
people. Here's one example. Word processor used to be a job, right? That used to be an activity that was an entry level job that someone would come in and do. And then what we did was we created tools, first typewriters, right?
Yeah.
Then electronic, then that made it easier and better and more efficient, to where that became a task that was spread out among more people, but then that those individuals redeployed into higher value activities.
Hmm.
So in a modern sense, I'm working with organizations at a couple different stages of maturity. I have one client organization, it's about 75 people. They've never had an outbound SDR channel.
Yeah.
They've never had to generate, they've always been very relationship sales based. They've always had, a couple of people out in market talking. For them to amp up a real outbound messaging to their organization in historical, just go back 5 years, would have meant hiring an entirely new
It
set of
would just
team.
be so it would be heavy, I mean, yeah, like, that
All
just
of the
feels like
risk of adding that as a capability that you
tools,
have
people,
in the minds.
time.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
heavy, you're right, it just feel I mean, I keep going to that word heavy, but you're right, it's like, when you say starting an outbound SDR team, I'm just like, I mean, the time to hire, the job posting, even that, I mean, so yeah, you're and now you're like, I could more or less try that in 30 days and know if it works or not.
Now I can use a virtual employee, right, like from Signals, and actually ramp up those activities with the guidance from the existing go-to-market team, which are more
Fascinating.
relational based, which do understand the service that's being delivered, but need that power to really kinda,
Mm,
drive that outbound to kinda bring in a higher quality conversation. On the
hmm,
flip side,
hmm,
there's other organizations that already have slim SDR teams or slim outbound teams that are driving those conversations, but now they need to get to a much higher volume, or in a lot of cases, a much more specific conversation. And so what we're able to do there is augment those organizations and now take those internal resources.
interesting.
Instead of talking to them about activity volumes, we're talking to them about value. How are
Yeah,
they
which
actually
is so
engaging
important.
in meaningful conversations with prospects? How are they actually driving prospects into proposals, and measure their performance based off that, not just how many calls, how many emails, how many LinkedIn messages they're sending.
Yeah, yeah, the move from activities to outcomes
Yeah.
is something I think we all need to that's gotta be one of the benefits of AI, because sometimes we've gotten so loaded in the, "Did you make your calls today?" And it's like, "Hey, yes, yes, yes," but if you didn't get any conversations, it really doesn't matter on that front. Couple more things I wanted to hit. In one of these pieces, I think it was in 5, in strategy 5, you hit the proposal idea, and trying to make that a little more AI driven, a little more personalized. Your position, you kind of position this as a conversion lever, if I remember,
Right.
not so much as an admin task. What does a high performing proposal process look like when AI is integrated? I thought this was an interesting one.
So this is a great example of automation, an AI enabled workflow really empowering something that has always been true, which
Mhm.
is, as I talk about services businesses kind of existing in this kind of knife's edge of something that our clients have to do that they can't do themselves. If they don't have to do it, they're not going to pay us. And if they can do it themselves, they're not going to pay us. So service providers live right on this, like this narrow point. And what that means is it's incumbent upon us to always define the relevance of our service in terms of our client's need.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is, to really get relevant, you have to get very specific. You have to know the challenges they're facing. You have to understand what the timing they have, the outcomes they're looking, and you have to be able to describe your services in their terms.
Hmm,
Problem is, that's hard. That's
hmm.
very time consuming. And what a lot of organizations historically have done is, kind of fallen back on this cookie cutter approach. It's what, the service providers, the worst case, but it creates an efficiency on the service provider side to say, here's what I do. Here's what makes me really special and good at that. And then you kind of leave it up to the client to figure out, how relevant that is to them.
Yeah.
What we can do now is break beyond the cookie cutter into truly personalized and hyper specific proposals at scale,
Hmm.
right? use AI-enabled workflows to create, news-driven, event-driven, very specific triggers that are creating and developing content specific to the individual client or prospect that you're talking to, and then layering in your specific service and how it addresses those needs. That is almost an insurmountable task for a pure human force when you're trying to get multiple proposals out the door, at a time frame. And so what it really does is allow us to kind of fulfill the promise that we've always had, which is to come in with a very necessary need in a
Hmm.
time frame and at a cost factor that makes sense for our clients.
Yeah, look, I think that's one of those tasks that I mean, I do think one of the benefits of AI is definitely time saving, right? So that you can focus on more, specific tasks and proposals. Being in the sales world, yeah, that is fairly tedious. And bringing some optimization, some scale, and some personalization to that, I think would be a
And
fascinating thing.
testing of the message, right? I mean, going through multiple iterations of it. So you're not just doing it the first time, you're actually internally testing it. You're using the tools to actually evaluate the quality of the proposal you have against the client need before you have to deliver it to the client.
I love it.
So creating this high sense of relevance through multiple iterations that just would have been, not doable in, fully manual sense.
I love it. I need to build. I'm going to build a proposal cloud employee after this. You've convinced me. I need to get that done.
You know,
It's not that hard, and it would be more of an assistant. I've played around with it a little bit in Gemini, but one of the things that I won't go too deep, but I think that's a great idea.
yeah.
I wanna have a little team AI teammate for that. The
And I
last
go through, until I go through, there's a lot of different tool sets that you can use,
Yes.
both from, from just the research itself. I mean, you and I have had this conversation, and I have said, like, I like to work with multiple tools
Yeah,
that kind of balance off each other, right? And that work together in the same way that you would with human colleagues,
right.
right? Your virtual colleagues are just that. They have a particular perspective, and what you want to do is have a blended perspective when you're kind of putting something like a proposal together. So who's
That's
your
fair.
doing your research, who's doing your content or your creative, who's actually doing the formatting, who's then doing the quality control over that. There's a blend between a human and virtual employees there that can kind of work together collaboratively to give you the best output.
That makes a big difference. Okay. Last piece here is you kind of wrapped up. Your last stage was this institutionalizing performance, and this moves a little bit more into like real time coaching and repeatable playbooks and more
Yeah.
systematic type ideas. How does a firm start to know if it's crossed that line from more experimenting with AI to actually becoming to this like AI enabled organization? How do you see that difference?
Ironically, one of the great signals is when you talk about it less,
Hmm.
right? When it's actually just a part of the way that you are doing your work.
Yeah.
And it's not a board level initiative. It's not a special project of the CEO or the go-to-market leader. It's not something that's at the tip of everyone's tongue because they're playing with it. It's simply a way of doing work.
Yeah. Cool.
It's the way we talk about email now, right? Or mobile or digital from
Right.
20 years ago. You don't talk about the fact that you're going to have, multiple connection points to the information. You don't
Yeah.
talk about the fact that you're going to have access. You just simply assume that it's there. And so one of the great, as with any, making change stick, you need change champions. And so
Yeah.
you need people within the organization. And I say people, not one individual. It can be led by an individual, but you need multiple people across the organization who are really going to be the champions of doing this.
Yes.
And then those individuals, they are demonstrating through their actions how the use of these tools and how the collaboration with the virtual employees are really kind of enabling and changing the workflow. And then as you bring new members into the organization, what they're experiencing is not that this is a change, but this is simply how we work. Right.
Yeah.
And so onboarding people into the organization who are working natively with these tools, who are working natively with and collaborating with their virtual colleagues, that now becomes just a standard way of working. You don't talk about it as
Hmm.
much as you do the output that you're producing from it.
Yeah, yeah, because it's kinda just part of your DNA, I like that. Okay, man, well, that's fun. That's a really fun talk track. Great document. We'll make sure we link it here in the notes so that people can check it out. Again, I think you had it as the AI GTM Playbook, 7 Ways to Multiply Your Revenue Team's Effectiveness. Appreciate putting that together. Loved kind of the logic and the steps. That last one, I'll have to noodle on that, but a couple great lines as well that I might steal. Scott, if someone wants to, learn a little bit more about yourself, the Crescent Group, what's the best way to get in contact?
Definitely can hit me up on LinkedIn, Scotty Webb on LinkedIn, or anytime at crescientgroup.com. Happy to engage and offering a lot of kind of like open consultations with organizations now, just to kind of talk about different ways of improving the go to market.
Love it. All right. Well, again, appreciate the time. And for the audience, have a fantastic day.
Great. Thanks, Gabe.